Cool. So yeah, thanks for coming out. Thanks for attending this talk. This is the third or fourth time I've given it, and it really becomes more of like a riff session, depending on certain, the questions that the audience will answer or whatever. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to interrupt me and raise your hand. I love that. A few more stragglers. Cool. So yeah, this is the front end of Days, and basically what I'll be covering here is my build process and the build process that, as a company, we are moving towards. As front enders, no one can ever agree on one tool or one way to do things, and so what this really is an example of how we decided to move forward with our build process and not really pigeonhole people, and how we kind of came to some of these decisions. So who the hell am I? My name is Bolles, at Bolles on Twitter. I'm commonly referred to as either Shaggy or Kurt Cobain or anyone with long hair when I take my hair down. My partner in crime, Wight, who we wrote this talk together, lost a filling at the airport bar and had to go emergency get his teeth fixed. So unfortunately he couldn't join us, but he's here in spirit. So an overview of what this talk is simply we'll be covering our front-end build process at Chapter 3. So Chapter 3 is a Drupal consultancy agency in San Francisco. We do mainly development, we do a few designs, but we have lots of developers on staff. So this is all a culmination of us talking and discussing between developers on how we do things, what tools we really like, and what technologies we wanted to support moving forward. So again, yeah, we'll be covering our build process and what tools and technologies make up for that. Quick show of hands, who is or knows about or is using build processes? And what I mean by that is a task runner in combination with theme-based assets to sort of serve up your themes and handle your development of your themes more intelligently and more quickly as a developer. So show of hands, everyone, grunt, gulp, smacks, that kind of stuff. Okay, so a few not. Great. This talk will be cover some of the beginner things. It'll also touch on some of the advanced things. If you don't know something, that's cool. Hopefully everyone will learn something here. And again, if you have any questions or comments, please raise your hand and let me know. So Christmas time, we had an airing of the grievances between our front-end developers on people were using gulp, people were using grunt. People had different asset architectures. People had tons and tons of folders. People didn't have enough folders. We were really all over the place on our front end theming, and obviously that makes it hard to hand off projects between developers. If I don't know what my coworker's doing, and he gives me his project and I have some tasks to complete, I don't know what node modules to install. I don't know what his landscape was. I don't know what his tools are and what needs to be updated and all this kind of stuff, and it can create a lot of headaches. I don't know if anyone's ever gotten a site and then tried to run grunt, and then the node modules, the dependencies are out of date, and then when you update them, it does something differently than it wasn't originally supposed to. It can get annoying, confusing, and really cumbersome, and that's not the point of this. The point of a build process and tools is to make our lives easier. It's to add more transparency to what we're doing as schemers, and it's really to not overcomplicate things, but have a baseline where we can work quickly and we can work transparently. And when we hand off our projects internally at Chapter 3 now, because we sort of had this airing of this grievance of how we do things, everyone, the last 2 projects that I've handed off, I had 0 questions asked on how to run my setup, where anything was, no questions. So obviously it's working. So we're going to cover the tools. We're going to cover our preprocessor of choice, some of the frameworks, and the architecture that we use, and of course commenting. So sort of first things first, this isn't really yeah, totally. Oh, dude. I'm hitting left and it wasn't going. Cool, sorry. So front end, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So, I'm hitting right on my screen, it just didn't look back. Thank you. So front end, there are the cat-gifs. I don't know if my head's in the way. Okay, cool. So again, my bad. Who the hell? I'm Bolles. I'm the first guy. this guy crossed out as the filling dude. He dipped on me. Asshole. No, he's fine. At Bolles is my Twitter handle. Yeah, GIFs, of course the GIFs. So yeah, this is the overview. This is kind of what I was talking about. This is basically what we'll cover. Pretty cool, pretty cool. So kind of like first up on the list is selecting a build tool. And I think that your architecture is equally as important, but getting this tool selected and understood across your team or even just as yourself is really important because it's what drives everything. And so there's three main ones. Well, not really. Broccoli is still young and fledgling, but Gulp and Grunt are the main ones. And there's been a lot of discussion about them. They're old-ish for internet terms. So I'm not going to cover terribly much about like what they do or installing them, but they're task runners. So Sass into CSS, minifying and linting JavaScript, compressing say a folder of SVGs into a single SVG so you can inline them, compressing images. Anything that you have to do as a front-end developer can be done with these build tools, and it really streamlines the process. So now I can, instead of like going to tiny PNG every time I have to compress an image, I sort of can just drop it in my image folder, and my build tool is watching that folder and compressing my images for me. Same thing with my Sass, same thing with everything. So really, instead of like using TinyPNG and then maybe like CodeKit and something else for JavaScript linting, where all these different tools, these build tasks or these build tools and these task runners kind of bring them all in house and can really clean up your builds. Again, cool. So continued, they're really simple and they're like basically the same. They look and behave super similarly initially. Grunt and Gulp, there's just a Gulp file which runs it runs the entire process. It's like if you want Sass or whatever to compile CSS. Your Grunt file, your Gulp file is where that logic is contained, and your package.json is simply kind of like an installer. So when someone grabs my theme, the package JSON tells them what version of Gulp or Grunt was being used and what packages are being saved, what modules are being used, and all that kind of good stuff. So up front, they're very similar. So if you're selecting one, like if you don't have a build process yet and you want to learn or want to kind of like learn how to create one, selecting either Grunt or Gulp is not a bad choice. We selected one. We selected Gulp for reasons that we'll get into, but selecting Grunt is not bad, and this is what we kind of wanted to show. As long as you're sort of on one of these, you have a large ecosystem to run with, and I don't really think they're going away until like HTTP 2 maybe, where all this stuff might all switch up. It's weird. My mouse used to be on this slide before it moves. Cool. So we'll look at Grunt first, and again we picked Gulp, but picking Grunt is not bad, and these do the exact same thing. The pros for Grunt are it was first, so it's got a huge ecosystem. There's Grunt plugins for everything. There are a few Grunt-only plugins that's sort of like Grunticon was a Grunt-only plugin, but I think they have a standalone node module now. So if you are looking for something that is well documented, has a great ecosystem, isn't really going away, Grunt is a great choice. It's slow. It is. It's a slower build process than Gulp. If you have a small setup, that might be fine. If you have a larger architecture, it can chug. Like it was to a point where on a bigger site of mine, it was like 10 seconds to compile, which was sort of my own fault. But it can get slow. It's like, and then again, it's intended for small projects. As soon as you get into a bigger architecture, you're going to start seeing some reduction of performance, and it's overextended in the sense that like they don't really know how they want to move forward. It's now a wrapper for Gulp and Broccoli. Like Grunt can run Gulp and Broccoli, so now we have task runners running task runners, and at that point I just have to step away, and I'm like, okay, so when you guys figure out this whole task runnerception, I'll come back to the game. But Grunt's rad. I won't really cover this, but this is how easy it is to get started with this type of stuff. NPM is Node Package Manager. I'm assuming not everyone has that installed already. But it's 5 steps to get Grunt running, really. You install the command line interface so that you can interact with it from your terminal. You install Grunt in your theme. So like a 4-line code, copy and paste, and then to get these packages, it's kind of the same thing. So it's very simple. This stuff is not complicated. You don't have to do a ton of coding to get it up and running. You can kind of just like any tutorial out there will really tell you how to get running on this kind of stuff. It's very simple. And really, the point between showing like how similar these things are and how similarly you install them is really to kind of illustrate the point that it doesn't necessarily matter. You have to choose a tool that's right for you. These aren't very complicated and they're well documented. So you have to use the one that makes the most sense for you. So here's another pain point, and sort of like this cat, Grunt's config file can sort of start feeling a little bit overwhelming. So as you can see, it's basically a JSON. It's an array of JSON data of just key value pairs. And so this is what powers all of your build process. So you can see we have a JS hint task. It's watching certain files, and it's including jQuery in them, and it will watch this directory. It'll watch these files, and every time one changes, every time you save, it'll lint it and ping you with any errors and output that stuff to the terminal. So while it is a bit cumbersome, in my opinion. Because it's config. You're manually creating a JSON file, which is cool, but it can feel a little overwhelming. So moving to Gulp, it's not as developed in an ecosystem sense. There's not as many modules now. I can probably say that anything you'd want to be doing on a Drupal theme has a Gulp extension. It's there. I have not run into a case where I can't find a module, a node module, not a Drupal module, a node module rather, that I can't pipe through Gulp. It's fast, like really, really freaking fast. It's a streaming task manager, so everything's piped in and handled in streams, and it's not like rerunning your entire build every single time. It's code over config, so as developers, you should kind of like that. You're not creating JSON files; you're actually writing code to manage these things. It's elegant. I like it. We sat down, we ran through both. I've created themes with Grunt, and I've created themes with Gulp. They're both rad. And at the end of the day, Gulp made more sense for us, especially with the speed thing. And as you can see, it's the exact same slide as the Grunt one. Again, it's very easy to install, very easy to get going, very simple and straightforward. So your choices, and really this illustrates your choice isn't based on anything other than how the tool works for you. If you try one and it works great, don't ditch it. If you don't like it, try the other one. Installing them, managing them are generally the same thing. Now here's where Gulp starts feeling a little more relaxed, like this dude. He's just kind of hanging out. Because Gulp, it now looks like code. Like if you guys write JavaScript, this is just JavaScript. Like we have a Sass task, and Sass is watching this folder, right? Watching all our CSS folders. And compiling it right here, pipe Sass. Really, that's all you have to do. Give it a little destination, what folder to write it in at the end, and all of a sudden you have Sass being watched on your theme. Every time you save it, it gets recompiled. And this is just an example of Sass. This exact same gulp.task format can be used for images, for JavaScript, for SVGs, whatever function you want to have happen during your theme building can be just simply managed through writing a function for Gulp. Which I like a lot. It looks cleaner, it feels better, and we're writing code. As a developer, I want to be writing code. I don't want to be manually creating a JSON file. So really the speed and the config, the gulpfile.js, were the two main things that us at Chapter 3 really liked. And is the reason that we moved away from Grunt and onto Gulp. But again, like they are really similar, and they're really both awesome, and they both do exactly what you need them to do. So try them both out. I really would recommend that. Cool, so after you've selected your build tool, you really need to decide whether preprocessing is for you or not. I know there's been a lot of talk of post-processing, about abusing Sass, and how really Sass leads to bad CSS, but I'm not of that camp. I think bad Sass leads to bad CSS, but I think good Sass, or less if you use less, can be an incredibly powerful tool in writing code. If you don't want to take that dive in, that's fine. I would recommend it. I would recommend Sass over less just because of the ecosystem, but I know there's been talk of not necessarily feeling like Sass was the tool that really it was all cracked up to be. It kind of gets abused and overused. But when looking at preprocessors, you're often dealing with these libraries. Compass being a Sass compiler with a library of built-in mixins. Bootstrap, we had a few Bootstrap developers, and it's fine. It's bloated as hell, right? It just has way too much shit in it, and they want that because it's for rapid prototyping. It's not for websites. If you use Bootstrap, that's fine. I'm not trying to knock on it. I just mean it really is. It's designed for rapid prototyping. It's a UI toolkit. It's really not a framework. Now, Bootstrap has Sass and less extensions that we were using that allow you to sort of like reduce the code bloat, adjust some variables, and get sort of a cleaner output. But when we were observing and analyzing some of the builds we did with Bootstrap, we just felt they were too bloated and too confining. We were deleting styles or not deleting styles, which would be even worse. We were just serving up bullshit to the browsers that they don't need. And so we kind of moved away from it. Compass, the same thing. Like, Compass was great when it first came out. It has like a plethora of mixins, and it's a really great library. But we just found it was too cumbersome. We weren't using it fully. Like maybe lighten, maybe darken, maybe the gradient mixin. But other than that, like I wasn't a power user, and we didn't have any Compass power users on staff. So we just felt like it was sort of another layer of complexity that we didn't need in our process. We could cut it out and have a leaner build and still kind of accomplish what we had wanted to do. And so these two at the bottom, Singularity and Suzy, I don't know if has anyone heard of Singularity and Suzy? Show them. Cool. So they're rad. They're math mixins. So most frameworks, CSS frameworks, come with a grid. There's Bootstrap's own grid, Foundation has its own grid, there's tons of standalone grids, like Skeleton has its own grid. And what we were finding was we never got a single grid. We didn't get 12 columns, 30 by 70 from all of our designers. I just dealt with one that was like a 6-column grid with no gutters. So when we were looking at these frameworks and all these tools, and they had their built-in grids, and we were like, shit, we don't even use that. Like, we throw half that away all the time. So these two frameworks right here, Singularity and Suzy, or Sass tools, they're not even frameworks, they're Sass tools. They allow you to create layouts on the fly. They're basically the same thing at this point. Singularity has a Compass dependency, so because of that, we ended up choosing Suzy. And Suzy, your layout, your math. So this tool specifically is sort of the crux of our build process right now. We try not to overcomplicate it with tools. We try not to have too much as a starting kit, but Suzy is freaking rad. Suzy is amazing. When it comes to creating a grid, you can create your own grid. You can create thousands of grids. You can have asymmetrical grids. You can have you can have gutterless grids. Sorry. You can have proportionate grids. You can do anything you need to do layout-wise. Suzy will do it for you. It's really rad, and so I actually was hesitant on using it at first. I was like, it's dumb. I just want to write my own grid. It's no big deal. It's just floating left and a %. But it really becomes bigger than that. And adopting this was the biggest improvement to my workflow I think I've had in a minute. So it was really rad. It's really well. The docs are really well done. Great information. I don't think I've ever had an issue where I've run into something and I wasn't able to find the answer for. And you have a plethora, well, not plethora, just two. You have float and isolation. I don't know if you guys are familiar with isolation, but if you've ever used the Zen theme or the Zen grids, or just seen some wacky negative left margins and stuff like that, it's sort of like pseudo absolute positioning is really helpful for manipulating source order. So it has two different outputs of your grids by default. And so a quick example of that would be this. So include span 3 of 6. Include span 3 of 6 last. So that's Suzy code. And very simply, span is width, span width. 3 of 6, span 3 columns of 6. So it's going to be 50%. And then here, span 3 of 6 last. So it'll remove the right margin for you, your gutter, so that it lines up on your page. And that's as simple as this. Like, that will do float left with 50% or whatever gutter. So if you have a gutter, it'll do the % map for you. It does all that for you on the fly, very simply. And I have a demo of it. Let me get my mouse over. Whoa. I can't drag it. There we go. And I have a demo on my CodePen. I just wanted to show you, guys, how simple it really is to create these dynamic layouts with Suzy and then how little code it takes. I don't know if you guys use CodePandas, right? Oh shoot, you can't really see my code that well. The context. But if, yeah, it's not that, the contrast isn't that good. I don't really want to pick with my settings right
Turn the
now.
lights down.
We could, yeah. Can we turn the lights down a bit? Or is that good? More? Better? We'll go all the way up. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is a quick demo. You're like, the contrast is still kind of shitty. I guess it's my color scheme. But really right here, I'm not going to stand on it. There's this Suzy variable right here. Well, columns 12, gutters 1/4. So a fourth of the column width is going to be into a gutter. That's the variables that power it. It's that simple. You can have multiple layouts. So here I have a few different layouts. I have my main layout, which is sort of the same thing, but using the isolate technique. I have an asymmetrical layout with no gutters. And so you can, in your stats variables, you can just continue to find any layout that you would need throughout your site. And like I said, it's sort of a grand ideal that you only have a singular grid on a site. But I had a 6-column gutterless grid who on one page had a 5-column people display with gutters, and then on another one had, I don't know, it was crazy. The designers just kind of got creative with it, and thankfully, because of Suzy, I was able to create all the different layouts on the fly, and it was very painless. I wasn't having to deal with someone else's pre-built stuff for me. And so if I can scroll down here a bit to where it's actually being output, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. So I'll widen that. And so this really is cool because this is an example of incorporating media queries into Suzy and how smooth it comes out. So right here is this code right here is all of the code that is powering this layout, and we actually have a completely responsive layout in that sense. So as I shrink this browser down, the content regions will snap into a linear layout like you should expect on mobile, or widen it out and they'll snap back. And that code is done here in what, less than 20 lines, I think. Yeah, 20 lines of code with spacing produces your entire responsive layout. So as you can see here, I'm just the same include span stuff, and you wrap that in a media query. So I have my own. Well, I use SassMQ, but this is a custom media query mixin. But imagine this is just at media, whatever, however you handle your media queries. You wrap your Suzy code in a media query, and you literally have responsive layouts in, I don't know, 20 lines of code. That was mind-blowing to me when I first saw that. Like, to be able to produce, so this outputs to 50 to 100 lines of CSS. I don't know, I didn't get those numbers, but it's like, this is the power of Sass. This is how Sass should be used to output good CSS. And then you can even get a little more, so yeah, especially as you manipulating source order. See, this simple sidebar is above my content region, and on the linear view, go back. Oh my gosh, I'm the best presenter, I apologize. I don't know how to get it back. Oh, there we go. The source order is super easy to manipulate as well. So as you can see, the simple sidebar is actually below on the linear layout. And that's, again, in 20 lines of code, I'm able to produce a completely responsive layout that won't break. And we can even do more complex stuff where the sidebar is on the left here. And as you get the screen gets wider, the sidebar pops out. So you can do like really complex layouts very, very, very simply. 20 lines of code.
What was the story with the source order? Everything else?
Sure, no doubt. So this is using a little bit of the isolate technique that I was talking about. See how it goes span 6 at 4, and then here it's span 3 first, and then here it's span 3 last. I know this is hard to see, but I'm telling the column where I want it to go. So this first column, I'm saying I want you to be 6 of my 12 columns. We already talked about that. And start at the 4th column. So it's going, okay, 1, 2, 3, now I'm starting, okay? So and then I told this one to be first, and so it shows up all the way to the left, and I told this one to be last, so it shows up all the way to the right. And that's the isolate technique. But again, I can manipulate.
Above that is the include of the media query.
That's just the media query. So I've wrapped my Suzy code in a media query. So whatever my lap, I think it's 600, whatever my lap breakpoint is, the code won't fire until we get there. And you can do, and so in my complex example, I have, so 2 media queries. So at my lap breakpoint, it's something, and then at my desk breakpoint, it's another. And so you can see, you can really do anything. It's crazy. It's just math. You can do anything. I love it. It's a great tool. And once you sit down and use it, it really, really, really is one of those things that like drastically improves your workflow, and I really like it. Any other questions before I move on? Totally.
Can you show the URL again for this book?
Yeah, I can. Right here. I think that's it. No, that's not it. That's a different one. I rebuilt it. I will. I'll be around after to get you guys a comment. The one here, I need to replace this, and these slides are on speaker deck, so I'll replace this link before I post it up as well. How's it going? You fine? So yeah, any other questions? I will make sure to get. I'll tweet out the link as well to it. But right, so like yeah, Susie was just was one of those things that was transformative for our process. So. That's not the only SaaS-based tool that we use, but it's the most important, and really, I think, as for a baseline for starting on any project, you want to keep as many tools out as necessary, and only start with absolutely what you need. That way you avoid having something there that's not being used, overcomplicating things, creating issues later on down the road with other developers, not knowing like why something's there but not being used, that type of stuff. But Susie is really the one that we've latched onto and include on every single one of our builds now. So moving on, this again is in no particular order of importance on how these build processes are built, but this one is freaking key. SMACs, who's heard of SMACs? Cool, Scalable Modular Architecture for CSS. If you haven't, read the book, buy it. It's by Jonathan Snook. The dude's a genius. It transformed the way I write CSS. And it's much more than just folder. Architecture. It's also naming, conventions, how to think about CSS in a modular way. It's really rad. Drupal 8 has adopted SMACs for its primary folder architecture of choice. So if you guys have dived into Drupal 8 yet, or when you will, when it's released soon, this should be familiar. So SMACs allowed us to then create a architecture that we could hand off. Now this is just really for our SaaS. It's a SaaS architecture for us. It can be applied to any number of things built modularly. But don't make me hunt through your bullshit. Like I was tired of having over folders. Like one thing I really don't like in websites is source dist. I don't think websites are complicated enough. They're not applications. I don't think you need a source dist. And we had tons of that shit, and it was bugging me. It bugged other people too. It was complicated. Lots of folders. Lots of folders. So we were like, dude, we gotta stop this. We have to figure something out. So we adopted SMACs. It's very simple. Base component layout, pages vendor. Like it's very obvious what these things are. Base styles, component styles. Just layout stuff. It's individual pages because we're building Drupal sites, and any vendor functions or frameworks that you might use. It really gave an insight into what everyone else was doing. I could pick up I utilized this, and like I said, I had 2 projects back to back where no one asked me questions. Right. This allows you to kind of all be on the same page with where your stuff's going, and it's really beneficial too. I feel like when you hand off or don't hand off, say your client goes to another development shop or whatever. This kind of makes you look good. Like I've had tons of builds where I'm like, dude, these people know what they're doing. What is this? So it not only adds clarity to what you guys are doing internally, but it really is sort of like it's a badge. SMACs is an industry standard, should be the way things are being done nowadays. So I would highly recommend reading it and adopting at least whatever makes sense for you and your projects and your builds. So continue. Yeah, buy it if you haven't. I bought it maybe twice and I really like it. But yeah, so this kind of breaks down what we use for Drupal. Vendor, blah, 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 baseline styles that you can reuse over and over again, like naked elements, your layout, your component, your pages. SMACs is rad. It's that in combination with removing a lot of cruft from our tool belt, really, added clarity and simplicity to our builds that was sorely lacking. So I'd recommend adopting at least some type of folder methodology like this. I don't always name my folders exactly this, depending on the build. And for instance, SMACs calls its components modules, but as Drupal developers, that's confusing. So name it what makes sense for you, but adopting a methodology like this is incredibly important. And so the principles kind of that I just went over. Keep it simple, stupid. Always, this is the best rule in life, I think, period. Always keep it simple. Document the architecture. So in my README file for my themes, if I have a baseline that says, here's all my stuff, if anything changes, I add that to my README. It's very important that you document and comment what your build process is, how to start it, what are dependencies, and all that kind of stuff. And obviously keeping it simple will make it easier to document. Yeah, and address per project. It's not a biblical outing. Like, these themes can be malleable. They can be specific to the exact project. You can overcomplicate them as necessary depending on what you're building. So there's no one right way, and every build will have some variance in it, and that's good. You're really just looking to have a baseline to improve your architecture and your transparency. So last but not least, at least on the clarity of your builds is commenting. And I've had this fire in my gut at my current job to make everyone comment, because I feel like, especially in your CSS, it might be taken for granted. Like in PHP or when you have a server-side language, like commenting's more prolific, and it's more like, I feel like people are going to want to do it more, but for CSS, it's equally as important. Comment everything. Comment your variables file. Comment all of your partials. Use like the common Drupal heading up here at file. Give me a little description of what the partial's doing. If you have any config, any Sass config, let me know what that is. Like, especially shame CSS. Like, if you're like, I need to use an important here because, comment that shit, because I'll delete your important and then yell at you for why is your stuff not written. Especially if it's code that you're not proud of or hacky, or it's because of some task that your client's making you do, comment that. Put it right above it so I know not to delete it, so that you can come back later and clean it up, create app to-dos for yourself. Comment the shit out of your CSS. It's incredibly important. And this with Smacks and our desire to share our tools with each other. So nothing really, we have monthly meetups where if we learn something new, discover a new tool, have a new cool build process, some new site building thing, we tell each other. And that became more important than having a common base theme, right? Everyone, like, we all write custom themes, so we don't have like a parent-child theme workflow. And what we really wanted to do was sit down and create one base theme that everyone would use that would have all the shit in it. But like, front-end developers are finicky and no one can agree on anything. We ended up just like fist fighting in the office, and it was really bad. So it became much more beneficial to adopt some of these methodologies, to narrow down our tool belt, and to comment the living crap out of everything. And like I said, again, I've had 2 builds now that I can hand off because I've done this type of stuff. No one has to ask me any questions, and that's cool because that means I can keep working on my new build. So like links for helpful commenting. And really, again, this middle one, I think, is the Drupal 8 new commenting guidelines. Don't quote me on that one. I do have Drupal 8 links in here, though. But Nicholas Gallagher is an incredibly talented CSS developer and he has had a large influence, actually, on the direction of Drupal 8. Inadvertently, he's not a Drupal developer, but he does a lot of really good work in the front-end landscape. He has a great write-up on how to comment your CSS. And these Sass guidelines from Hugo, who is just a Sass contributor, are also really, really, really powerful. So if you want some helpful links on how to go about constructing proper comments, they're there, and there's probably tons of others for sure. So what is my time? What is this? Talk like 45 minutes? It's 1:35. Whatever, someone will yell at me. So our workflow, to kind of wrap it all up, we like Sass. So we, as a development shop, we like tools that make our lives easier, and we felt that Sass does that. I don't really want to move on to a post-processor. I don't want to lose my variables. I don't want to lose my mixins. I don't like the spec of CSS variables, where it's like root, and then like dashes. I just don't like it. I don't want to write CSS like that. I don't want to write style like that. So we've adopted Sass, and we won't let it go until it's dead or not. Is literally not needed. Smacks, of course, like I said, it just adds clarity to everything that you're doing. We use gulp instead of grunt. It's fast. And Suzy is really rad. If you guys are Compass users, Singularity and Suzy are exactly the same. But again, we didn't like the Compass dependency. So we sort of dropped it. These two down here, I didn't really cover in the talk, but these two tools I love. Oh my gosh. So SassMQ, there's like Breakpoint and SassMQ. Do you guys use Breakpoint or SassMQ? They're basically Breakpoint mixins that'll just incredibly make your lives easier when it comes to managing, maintaining, and utilizing breakpoints, especially if you're going to do some complicated responsive stuff. So SassMQ is my breakpoint mixin of choice. I actually include SassMQ and Suzy as the only Sass libraries that I start with on my projects and add the other ones as needed, but SassMQ is really freaking awesome. And that example that I showed on Suzy, where it was like include MQ lap, is the syntax for SassMQ. So that's how easy it is to write breakpoints. And then SassDocs is really cool. Has anyone seen SassDocs? No one? SassDocs is insane. It will parse your Sass architecture for you and create a documentation site on the fly. On the fly. You don't have to, all you have to do is comment your code correctly, and it will create the Sass doc for you. And let me show. I can show you guys one actually. Where's my mouse? There it is. Sass docs is rad. Talk about being able to like have a build process that you can hand off to someone else. This literally creates a documentation site of your custom. I have it built. I do. Rad. Nice. Okay. So this is the Sass doc for my custom theme. Oh, new tab. That doesn't make it big. Whatever. I can't hit this. Well, I guess I can, but this takes it over. I don't want it to do that. I don't like this thing that much. So this documentation site was built for me by Gulp, by my build tool. It knows all of my functions. It knows all of my mixins. It knows all of my variables. And because I commented well, I can have descriptions. I have parameters, like the key, the name of the color. I can have examples. So just a function to get a color out of a map, spacing unit, vertical rhythm, clear fix. So this tool is freaking cool. If you have to comment the right way, there's a certain commenting format that it parses over and turns it into this. But I literally don't have to do anything. Every build I do now, I just have an entire documentation side of my Sass that I can give off to some other developer, whoever's going to work on it. And they can see everything that I've done, examples, and all my variables, all the things that it's doing. Really, really, really cool. And it's just a rad tool. It's not a Sass library or anything. It's actually a node module. So it doesn't add anything up front, and you don't. Not everyone at Chapter 3 is utilizing this tool yet, but I think it's invaluable. I really enjoy being able to like hand someone a really well built documentation section from my theme without having to do any work for it. I think that's pretty cool. So that's Sass doc. Those are a little, not advanced, but specific. If you want to use them, you can. If you don't want to use them, you don't have to. The media query mixin, there's like tons of them, and everyone kind of has their own favorite. But we really like SassMQ. So cool. Now that that's all said, really, I think the gist of what we look our build process to do is handle all the stuff that Drupal can't. So things that I think build processes shouldn't do are like concatenating JavaScript files together. Your vendor files, you can either add them to your .info, you can use Drupal add.js, but I don't think you want to concatenate JavaScript or any files really at the theme layer, because Drupal already does that. We can turn on aggregation, we have advanced aggregation, we have bundling, they have different sections. They have head.js and footer.js, and they have, you can do dependent.js. You don't have to add it to your .info file. So we really look to utilize Drupal for what it does well, and a build process for all the stuff that it can't do well. There's also, and so I was toying around with the idea of moving some of this stuff server side, so I didn't have to do it locally, especially when you have finicky hosting companies, or not hosting providers, and different live dev stage environments. And I don't know, some of this stuff can get a little cumbersome to like cherry pick commits to live from your dev stage. You haven't created feature branch for it. I don't know, but there's PHP libraries for all the stuff that we use. Auto prefixer, Node Sass, or libsass rather, which is what Node Sass is a wrapper for, which is what Gulp Sass is a wrapper for, also has a PHP extension. So I've been building some of these modules like for fun. They don't really work as well as I'd like them to yet. But you can kind of replicate some of your build process through PHP if you need to. Some of the modules, though, that we use to further our front-end development and performance are these 4 right here. We use much more, but these are 4 that I feel like are skipped over at times. Image API Optimize is really cool. It's in a weird place right now because Smush It died, and that's what it defaulted to. So you have to have your own compression library, which is not a big deal, but it doesn't work out of the box anymore. I think there's a RTPC that patches that, but this basically, any image that your client will upload through the system will get optimized, like don't run through TimePNG or anything. It's really cool. It's helpful when they're managing their own hero images and it's 2,000 pixels wide and it's not optimized, and you're like, well, I can cache it, or I can feed it through an image cache, but it's still not going to do anything to the bloat of the image. This fixes that for you. Advanced aggregation is one of my pet peeves of Drupal's built-in aggregation is the fact that it goes into the theme module core compression levels. So you will get 3 JavaScript and CS files no matter what you do. Advanced aggregation defeats that, which is cool. It finally puts them all into one file, which is all I want to serve. It also has the IE selector limit, so what IE 8 or 9 can only do 4,000 something in a file, and so this will know that and spit it out into 2 different files for you into an IE only tag. Entity cache is rad. It doesn't do much if you have like Varnish running in the background, but it's really cool. It just caches all your entities, sort of like use cache. Boost is if you have a site that doesn't have a lot of logged in users and maybe not a lot of dynamic content, or maybe your comments handled on Facebook or something, Boost will serve up your entire site as a static HTML site. It's really freaking cool. So on your smaller Drupal builds, I would really advise enabling Boost, because like at that point it's a static site. You're just serving up HTML files, and it's really cool. So those are just a few modules that we like to kind of incorporate as a baseline on our front-end development and build process, so that we can get a leaner build from the get-go. So a few more links. The Drupal CSS coding standards is the new one. So that's D8, and the old ones are garbage. Don't go backwards. The D7 CSS coding standards were just all over the place, and they're not well documented, and they didn't have any basis in the community, and they didn't do any research for them. They just were like, someone was just like, write it this way, and it was all wrong. But the D8 ones are all industry best practices at this point. It's a really good documentation section. I was very happy to see that. Idiomatic CSS is another one of my pseudo Bibles. That repo from Nicholas Gallagher is really beneficial. Smacks, of course. Stubborn Ella, she is sort of the pioneer, not the grandmother, I guess it's not around that long. She's like the mother of modular CSS. She did the media object, which was revolutionary at the time, because she abstracted this pattern into 6 lines of code that can be repeated everywhere, and the media object is a pattern that's used literally everywhere. She's kind of like the mother of modular CSS in that sense. This Suzy tutorial will cover everything I talked about and more. It is really good. I think that was one of the first ones that I dove into. CSS Tricks has another great article. I know that I think they're using Suzy on they're using Suzy on CodePen to lay it out. CSS Tricks has its own thing, but this article I believe is from the main proponent for Suzy. Oh no, this one is. This Zell guy is like, he's a contributor or something, and he knows everything. So that tutorial is really good. And then SassDocs, if you're interested in that documentation section that I showed you, it's just sassdoc.com, and it's really, really, really simple and straightforward. You just install it, comment the right way, and you're off and running. So that's it, I think, right? I think the last slide is just go on, Super Saiyan 2! Cool, so I talked fast and I talked a lot, and I kind of skipped, or I didn't skip, but I jumped a bit over my tools and stuff like that. So if you have any questions, feel free to shout them out. Or come see me, I'll be here, buy me a beer. Don't buy me a beer, I'll buy you one, we can talk about it. But yeah, so again, this was Chapter 3's front-end build process, and I hope if you didn't if you learned something great, if you're doing this stuff already, I hope you feel like you have some solace and some company with it, because I feel like a lot of people are doing a lot of this stuff and sort of need some reassurance that this is the right way. And as a company, I know that we did. So cool, that's it.